Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest today, Oli Billson, started his first business at the age of 15. He now owns a portfolio of 4 multi-million-dollar businesses, one of which is now international with 170 franchises. His superpower lies in strategizing and implementing conversion-led money-making sales and money-making funnels. His latest venture is Next Level Business, which transforms normal businesses into fast growth businesses that experience double-digit growth year after year. Oli, welcome. It's great to have you on here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this. And look, let's get a bit of context. Let's give a bit of context to this podcast. If you don't mind, share with the listeners how you got started and what your entrepreneurial journey kind of looked like.
Sure. So I've never actually worked for anybody. I started my first business when I was 15 years old and building computers, custom computers in my bedroom. And just by a strange course of events, I ended up exporting those to the Far East and having these DHL vans arriving at my mum and dad's house and them being shipped off out there, which was pretty amazing at that time. I knew pretty early on, that I probably wasn't going to go the typical route of other people. And I didn't really fit the mold, so to speak. So, over a few years that passed from there, I followed a passion really into cars, into working with cars. I had a detailing business and then a window tinting business. And so we'd started building that kind of service-based business up before then transitioning to actually teaching people how to start and grow their own window tinting businesses. And that was an amazing time because I kind of was released from the shackles of this kind of service-led business into training people in this skill of helping them escape the 9 to 5 and obviously start their own businesses. And then from there, I continued to kind of build businesses inside of businesses. So we built our franchise business, which you referred to in that kind intro of yours. And we monetized the list of people that we had generated for our opportunity, which was in window tinting, to sell a vehicle tuning business, a vehicle remapping business. And we sold that internationally, 0 to 170 franchises in just less than 4 years. And from that, a lot of people thought, wow, how has he kind of built that franchise so quick, right? So I actually started working and consulting with people, sort of selling my knowledge to them on how to build a franchise very quickly, and other formats of scale, from franchising, distributorships, licensing, our exclusive programs, and so on and so forth. And what was interesting was these businesses I was building, I wasn't selling. They weren't like coming and going. They weren't a flash in the pan. And in fact, just up until last year, those 14 years of building those businesses, I actually sold two of my businesses last year that were kind of coupled together there. And so my kind of knowledge, my experience, my know-how has kind of come from building real businesses before then building a marketing agency that was powering a lot of those businesses. And we were obviously hired by a lot of people to help with their marketing, and people like Dan Kennedy. We ran marketing for Dan and GKIC for over 2 years, running their front-end acquisition, membership acquisition, retention, event, mastermind coaching programs, and many other people that people would have heard of that we've worked with and I've consulted with as well. So that kind of background of building these businesses commercially into really my skill of marketing and online marketing, that we've been able to build, a marketing agency to do. And then from there, now, Next Level Business, which is an online education business. And we actually teach people like agency owners, consultants, coaches, experts, or normal businesses, how to transition their knowledge and skills and know-how into a online leverage program that they can sell and build a business inside of their business, just like I have.
I mean, one of the things that you're great at, and obviously to grow businesses the way you've been growing and to grow your marketing agency the way you're doing it right now is lead generation, right? So that's something you talk a lot about. What are some tips you have for the listeners, or maybe some of the mistakes you see most people doing wrong when it comes to lead generation, and kind of what's the remedy?
So I think probably the biggest mistake that I see is that most people, they think about all of the ways that they could go and generate leads, and they actually forget how they're actually going to sell to them. And in most cases, certainly if you're not in the e-commerce space, if you're in the service-based space or you're in the consulting space, generally speaking, you have to have a conversation with somebody before they're actually going to make a decision to work with you. Or there's like a discovery process to find out if they're a fit. So most people like see a lot of these tactics out there, whether it's a traffic platform or whether it's some sort of lead generation mechanism or funnel. And they kind of get excited by that. They clue themselves up, but they actually forget that ultimately we're trying to lead people towards actually talking to somebody and making a sale. So they don't progressively profile people to get the information that they need to actually start those conversations from the beginning. And they forget about everything that happens when you're building a list, when it comes to like lead scoring or like predictive lead scoring, if you can, and ways to like know what is the people that you actually want to work with, so that you can spend your time on the most valuable prospects that are more likely to be a fit, to bubble them up into a conversation.
So does part of that come down to qualifying, right? So I know you have some really good tips on how to qualify, or even when in the funnel you should be qualifying, even as far as going as deep as where to put your calendar link. Can you share some of those tips with us?
Yeah, sure. So I think most people have this vanity metric of how big their list is or what their kind of net growth is of their list on an ongoing basis. And for those that need to have a conversation to talk to people, that's just like a vanity metric, right? You can generate all the leads under the sun. They can be the cheapest leads in the world. If they don't actually turn into consultations where you can talk about what you do, it's useless. So for me, we have a framework called the phone funnel framework, and it's a very predictable way to drive qualified leads into sales appointments, where we'll actually ask for more information on the front end than most people will ask. And it begins with really getting the main piece of contact information with their phone number at the beginning. Now, most people will teach you that, you know, the more information we ask for, the conversion rate generally goes down. And that's very true. There's other ways to mitigate that, which I'll talk about in a second. But most people don't go in with it with that mindset of thinking, let me get the information in advance. So the phone funnel framework actually is predicated upon communicating with text marketing versus email marketing. So we're connecting with the device that's in our prospect's pocket that opens out the channel of communication to then get them on the phone. So we can actually start a conversation with somebody, kind of like live chat on a website, and then move those people then into a call. And we can call them if we wanted to outbound them, but that's the best way of doing that. And the phone funnel framework does an exceptional great job of closing people. If you've got a ticket price of say $3 to $36,000, $50,000 or even more, we have some people that are, have much higher ticket prices than that. And they just want to work with the most qualified people. They actually need to have a conversation with people. They're more of a sophisticated buyer. Then that works really well. And if you aren't using the phone funnel framework, one of the best ways to collect more information as part of like a normal lead generation funnel is to actually do kind of a multi-step approach, where maybe on the first step we would have a very low entry based kind of value proposition, to download a PDF, like typical kind of lead magnet. But then on the second step, we would actually ask some profiling questions and even ask for their phone number at that point. So the first step, we would get that information. The second step, we've collected it in our CRM system already, or it's been pre-populated on the second step. And then we can ask them, say, for example, you, for your marketing agency, you want to generate the best quality leads. Well, the first step, you can say, look, here's 5 mistakes that whatever your niche is that you're going after are making, download it, or here's the retention guide or whatever. On the second step, you can say, hey, I'd love to post you, like mail you, or you would say, we would love to mail you a physical version of this guide, plus several other bonuses that I think you'll really find helpful when it comes to insert desired situation, right? So now you're trading their additional contact information, which is their mailing address, their phone number as well, for that way of now getting more qualified people to see you in multiple modalities. And then in addition to that, you can ask some profiling questions that say what best describes you. And then if you've done your marketing reconnaissance in the right way, when they receive that mail package, it will have, let's say it was, you were attracting people in 3 different avatars, like part-time, full-time was a bolt-on business. It would have a headline that would say, if you're looking to start a full-time business, then my guess is insert pain point 1, insert pain point 2, insert pain point 3. And it had flexible copy based upon what persona that they had selected, what profile they are. And then, of course, we can then start the conversation because we've got the mailing address. Hey, just wanted to check in that you got it in the mail, and that it had arrived okay. And then we're starting to then begin that conversation with them, of course.
So very different than the follow-up that I get most of the time is, hey, I just want to make sure you got my last email, or, hey, my email hasn't been sending. I've been having some problems, so I just want to check in to make sure you got it. So this gives you a little bit of a head start on really following up in the right way. One thing I love that you said was the vanity metrics, right, that you were talking about. I think what most people don't realize is they get so caught up with their cost per lead, but they don't realize that they pay more for a qualified lead, right? Like, who cares if you're paying 16 cents to have thousands of leads that aren't qualified when you could pay, $300 or $500 for a lead that is qualified? Why do you think most people get so tripped up over those vanity metrics?
Well, sometimes they don't know what the actual metrics are that are important to them in the first place, and it would be a bit like if you were, for example, in e-commerce, one of the main 3 metrics that come into any kind of like business like that is recency, frequency, and monetary, RFM. If people don't know that in like that type of business, it actually boils down to other types of businesses as well. But in e-commerce, those are like big metrics, right? And they're plastered everywhere. In fact, I think they're even built into like Shopify and other things like that, right? Whereas like for a lot of other businesses, they just don't know what's important to them. So for me, I'll just give you what would be important to me if I was having to have a conversation as like an agency owner, or, I was running a consulting business or whatever. For me, I look at all the way back to, if I'm running paid ads, what's my CPM cost? Pretty easy. What's my cost of 1,000 impressions? You get that from Facebook, obviously, or wherever it is that you're advertising. Next is, how many clicks did I get? So again, how many clicks did I get? And then how many people opted in? So what were the number of leads? And also what was the number of landing page views that came from the clicks? Because the amount of clicks don't always equal the number of people that actually hit the landing page. Your page might be slow. There might be different redirects. There might be lots of weird shit going on. That can happen sometimes. So how many people hit the page versus how many people clicked gives us a landing page conversion rate. Then how many people viewed our piece of value, whether it's like a video, sales letter, or some kind of educational content. Then how many people from the video then went and actually made what we call a qualification survey. So they completed a survey. And then how many people then booked a call. And then how many people that booked a call then showed up to the call. Then people who showed up to the call, how many of those people closed? So for me as a business owner, after all those metrics I just gave you, what's the most important? Most people will look at like lead cost, or they'll look at, click-through rate. Not important. The most important metric for me as a growth lever is, what's the cost of getting a scheduled appointment, a qualified scheduled appointment, and what's the show up rate of that appointment. If I know that my show up rate is like 70% and my cost of appointment is $200, for example, and I know that my close rate is 30%, then every 5 people I speak to, I'm going to make 1 sale. And if my offer is $5,000, that's $5,000 a day per rep. And so you can scale it up based upon that. So you've always got to look at like, what are the vital few things? And for me, you've got to look at the tolerance of what you can withstand. So the ultimate metric that you always have to look at is what's the cost of acquiring a customer. So I'm buying customers for like $1,500 for a $6,000 offer. Fine, no problems. But what's the tolerance between that? And then, you know, not to get too geeky or sophisticated, but in between that, then you're also going to look at things like lead to buyer time, and then lead to schedule time, and then schedule to buyer time, so that you can understand based upon these different milestones, what's the cash flow trough that we go into with paid advertising before it becomes good. And, you know, all of these things are very, very important in order to win and scale quickly.
No, I like that you geeked out, because the numbers tell a story. And so often you'll get clients who, or if you're a business owner listening, you'll always ask, well, how much money do I need to spend on advertising? Or how much money do I need? Well, you kind of have to do, if you know all those numbers that Oli was just talking about, it's just simple math. You reverse engineer backwards and be like, okay, well, here you go. This is how much you need to spend if you want to do this amount. And it becomes super easy. I just don't think most companies ever take a step back and look at the macro and kind of see the whole story that the numbers tell. You talked about the phone funnel system. What are the elements of that funnel?
Sure. So it begins with Facebook advertising, typically for most people. And we use an advertising objective inside of Facebook called Facebook lead ads. Now, if you've used Facebook lead ads, which is called a lead generation mechanism inside of Facebook, the biggest problem with lead ads is this. Well, the best benefit for most people who are using, I should say, is Facebook likes to keep their users inside of their platform. So you're always going to get the best pricing for advertising when you're keeping people in their platform. The other benefit is that they've got their own user data. So that means that they can pre-fill and pre-populate a web form essentially inside of Facebook. But the big problem, if you've ever done it before, is that you can get a lot of leads, but you're getting email leads and they're based upon user data. And I don't know about you, but when I signed up for Facebook, my email address was probably like coyote123@hotmail.com. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really bad email data. And if you're just basically focusing on email as the main delivery mechanism for your message to follow up, it's obviously not going to be very good. But one of the key things that Facebook does have on all of its users is its security mechanism, so that you don't get locked out of your account, which is mobile phone number. And so what we can do is, with a lead ad, we can actually collect their phone number up front, which now there's very little resistance to, because it's pre-filled, but also it's very accurate. And 3, we can now automatically trigger a text message to that person once they filled it out. So let's say, for example, you're an agency owner and you see my ad from nextlevelbusiness.com on Facebook today, and it says, how would you like to transition your knowledge, know-how, and experience from an agency into an online leverage program and scale past $100,000 a month? You're like, oh, that sounds interesting. You click the ad, and I would say, let me deliver this free case study video to you where we show you how to take an agency into a hyper profitable online education business in less than 60 days. You're like, yeah, brilliant. And it says, you know, text message. In what we say is, we say, would you like us to instantly text you a link to the video? You're like, well, yeah, because I'm already on my mobile phone, because about 80% of all the people on Facebook are on their mobile phone anyway. And if you're doing your advertising right, sometimes you can just target mobile devices only anyway. So you're like, well, I'm on my mobile phone. He wants me to send this video that I really want. I just want it now. And that's the psychology of it, that people don't want to have to wait for the information to get it in their inbox. They just want it now. So you press submit, send me the video. Instantly, I send you a, hey, great news. Here's the video I promised. Let me know what you think about it. You then go to a page which is called a primer video page. And what the primer video page does, it just says, hey, thanks so much for requesting this video. My name's Oli Billson. And in the next few minutes, you're going to be able to discover how we took this from this to this. And I think you're going to find it really, really valuable. There's a button beneath this video. Go and check it out. Now, we put that sandwich in between the two as a way for commitment and consistency, but also as a way to slow people down in the process. So they get to know you face to camera a little bit before they then go to what we call the main event video, which is where generally over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we'll explain a little bit about what we do, how it works, who we are, how we can help you. And then they can then get an opportunity to go and book a call with the sales team to talk a little bit more about whether it's a fit or not. Throughout all of these different stages, there's some contingencies, again, through text message, that is just going to follow up with you. So, hey, I noticed that you watched the video. What did you think of the concept? And then if you text back, now you're in a sales dialogue without even knowing it, but we're actually serving you by asking you what you thought was good, what you thought you may need some help with, what do you need to know to move it forward. And it just seems very like normal, just like speaking to somebody over the phone, which most people like. And it works pretty much for any type of business.
Which is funny because I think the biggest mistake people do when it comes to online sales is they ignore real world sales tactics, right? You don't walk into a bar and scream, hey, want to work with my agency? Or, hey, want to hire us? But everyone thinks that on social media, it's a free reign to just go and, hey, if I throw this ad up and sit there and say, like, whatever the offer was, I'll just put that offer there and people will take me up on it without any introduction. And what you're doing is really developing that relationship along the way, which I think most people, at least most people that I've seen market online, ignore that part.
Yeah, and I think they're confused, overwhelmed by all of the things that they could do versus like the one thing that they should do. And
or
this is really
it's too. I mean, this is what's great for agencies like myself and like you, is that most other agencies just don't want to put in the work to do that. Right? They don't want to go above and beyond, right? They'll charge their client, or if you're doing it in-house, you'll pay to just throw an ad up there and call it a day, right? No one wants to go and do the work that actually produces results. When it comes to lead generation, especially now, and especially on Facebook, as you and I both know, there's so much noise on these platforms, right? There's so many different ads. What's the main criteria in your mind in order to break through that noise?
Well, I think first of all, you've got to look at obviously the ad creative itself, and think to yourself, what is a good ad? Because most people don't really they might have some frame of reference for Facebook advertising, or like what some people think is good ads, and they might have read like old books or whatever in the past and trying to apply some direct response tactics to it, but they often don't really get off the ground in the way that they want to. And there's lots of different reasons for that, and there's probably 6, I would say, things that people don't do just generally that they should do. One is they're not different, so there's no differentiation. So they're not really demonstrating anything to that audience that they haven't seen before, that's going to get their attention, that's going to, stop the scroll and get them to kind of lean in to the ad and go, oh, hold on a second, this isn't something like I've seen before. That's the first thing. The second thing, which is kind of partly to do with this, is in the messaging being polarizing. Actually, being in some cases, it can be controversial, but being able to, when we think about polarizing, being at one end of the scale of something completely different,
like the pop, again, like poppy syndrome, right? Like with speaking with authority and absolutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like the third thing is to create some sort of controversy or something that's a bit controversial in your ad. That kind of goes against the grain, or something that is completely different to what other people are actually saying. And, you know, kind of like I wrote an ad a couple of years ago that said like the death of the automated webinar. Even in itself, that idea is something that people are going, that's impossible. I've heard people make millions of dollars from automated webinars. That's impossible. What do you mean the death of automated webinars? I've got a friend that's doing really well, even though they're probably, you know, you don't really know about how good their automated webinar is, you know, when most of them suck. So like the death of the automated webinar. So that's polarizing. It's controversial, but it also has to be true. You can't just say something. You also have to there has to back it up with like some form of like truth to it and association to it. Fourth would be to like nail a problem, like an actual problem that can kind of be validated in the ad itself, that somebody has, that's their current situation, that's the way that they feel, that's like their average day, that's what's in their mind, like that's what they're staring at the ceiling at late at night, keeping them up. That has to be the thing. We have to nail a problem and be really clear on what the problem is. Fifth would be provide a unique solution. So like a mechanism that they haven't heard of before. So if I said something like, if you're struggling to make Facebook advertising work for your business and you need to have conversations with people in order to be able to actually sell to them, and it's not working for you, then the chances are I can tell you, you're not on your own, and it's not really your fault. It's just the way that it's been explained to you, and there's a better way. That way, and then I'd introduce my mechanism, is with something called the phone funnel framework, which will help you predictably drive qualified leads into sales appointments on autopilot. As hard as it is to believe, and I don't expect you to believe a word of what I'm saying, but I'll share with you in this case study how you could essentially make it work for you. So that's kind of providing a unique solution, a unique mechanism. And then the sixth is like providing, like show them that there's a result. So at the end of that, I would probably say we've helped 357 people just like you who were struggling with this problem, and since then have now gone on to solve their lead generation issues, get higher qualified people on the phone, and ultimately better quality clients. If you'd like to do the same, then click the button below and, you know, go and check it out. So those are the kind of the six like key things really, that when it comes to writing ads and making advertising work generally.
I want to go back to one of the first ones, which we spoke about. Like Ryan Dice and I had a whole conversation about this, about, you know, poppy syndrome, right? Like you're afraid to put your head out there because it will get chopped off. Like tall poppy syndrome, it's called. When you're writing in absolutes, when you're going all out like that, you're going to generate a lot of hate and a lot of people coming in and being like you're saying, you're wrong. Like, what, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy's an idiot. Now, for someone like you, even myself to an extent, but I haven't been doing this as long as you, posting and you build up the thick skin for it. But the listeners who are now trying to put themselves more out there, it's a scary thing to do. What's your advice?
Well, I think that you will always find, by the way, when you write a good ad is often, supposing it's in front of the right audience, will have a high click-through rate, right? So it will have high attention. But a lot of the time, when you get that, you look at the comments of that ad, and you'll find that they should be balanced because you've got that polarization. So it should be like kind of balanced in the vein of like, this is amazing, but then on the other side of it should be like them arguing almost between themselves, right? And you know you've got a really good ad when that's working. So just to reaffirm that works. If I see an ad when it's all positive and there's loads of like shares, there's loads of comments, there's nothing negative, that means that like it's hitting other kind of points. versus it being going to be really successful. Like the best ads, they last for a while. A lot of people talk about ad fatigue. Like the best ads, they last for some time. And so they do that because they're balanced. In terms of dealing with it, like one way is don't read the comments and get somebody else to respond to them. That's one way. The other way is like in Facebook, on Facebook pages, you can actually create words that can be automatically excluded from comments as well. So you don't even see them. So if somebody wanted to call like you a scam or like use some profanity or like anything that would seem to be kind of, you know, an attack, you could actually list all of those words and so that they couldn't put them. I'm always like a believer that there should be some form of free speech on an ad. And therefore I want to kind of, they don't know this, but the more people that don't like it, or the more people that want to comment and have an opinion, they're actually helping you in terms of engagement, because there's more comments, there's more people being involved. And like, they don't know that. I'd be like, hey, thanks so much. Like, this is pretty awesome. Like, it gives me an opportunity to comment and go, that's fascinating, you know? And really that's it. I think you just need to think about it and think, you know, these people are like, they're probably not going to be your customers anyway, number one. But also, life isn't like that anyway. So not everybody's going to like you. And, you know, regardless of what your profile is as a person, you have to come to terms with the fact that you can't please everybody. That's just the way that it is. So the sooner that you face that and deal with it, it's done.
I mean, I've seen a Tony Robbins ad where I really think it was like a brand awareness ad, because I don't even think he was selling anything, where he was talking about like some sort of like positivity message, and people were like, this guy's a clown, this guy's a joke. I'm like, he's not even saying anything. Like, why are you even on here writing negative comments? This guy's not even saying anything bad or weird or asking you for money. I still, as long as I've been doing this, I still haven't wrapped myself around the psychology of what it takes. And I've been on Facebook since, I remember Facebook didn't exist in Canada when I first heard of it. I went to a party in New York, and I met a girl, and she was like, here, add me on Facebook. I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll add you. And I had no clue what it was. I had to come home, and then I had to make up an account that I went to NYU, and I had to make up an account, just the things we did to meet people when we were young. But I mean, as long as I've been doing, I still can't wrap my head around the psychology of what it takes to go on and start writing negative on someone's ad, or someone you don't know, or someone you've never met, someone who's never done anything to you. I've just been using the platform this long, and I have no desire to even write positive things on people's walls, let alone negative. It's something that just still baffles me today.
Yeah, I don't know why, but some people have got a lot of time on their hands.
So it seems like it.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like whatever, you know.
Yeah, look, like you said, if it's going to help my engagement, go for it. One thing I want to jump back for a second. I forget what your answer was, because, and I remember this from a bit. You had a really interesting approach on where to put the calendar or the scheduling link on a funnel. Can you tell us that?
Well, in the early stages of putting a funnel together, if you're trying to get people on the phone, you put the scheduling, the booking page, where they can select a date and time, actually sooner in the funnel. Like you'll actually put it straight after the piece of value that they've watched, or like straight after they've opted in or whatever, because you want more bookings, obviously. Then so that's like stage one. Like in the early stages, you want like as many bookings as you can, so that's what you'll do. But then when your calendar starts to fill up, you'll find you've got more unqualified prospects, and you've got more people that are just doing it for the hell of it, and they're not really that interested. The second phase of it is to put the calendar first, and then to put the application second. So generally there's some sort of application form or short quiz or short survey after the scheduler, that will collect more information. Then you can cancel calls proactively, because you're like, these people are not a fit. They're just starting out. They're less than $10,000 a month, whatever it is that your qualification criteria is, you can do that. Then the third phase is actually where you switch the booking page with the survey or questionnaire. And so then they'll go to a piece of value. Then the next step is to see if you qualify before them even seeing the booking page. So generally they will fill in a questionnaire, a quiz. Like we have a visual like quiz to see it, if they qualify. And then if they make it through that, then they'll see the booking page. And then the fourth stage of it, believe it or not, there's a fourth stage. All of this matters, is that you have some conditional logic that's built in to the survey, which actually kicks people out based upon their questions. So we have a couple of questions in our survey that I think we've changed it fairly recently, actually, but it used to say the first two questions in the survey was, how do you see education, a cost or an investment? Okay. If they click cost, it would immediately just kick them out to a page that says, I'm sorry. It would literally just kick them straight out, redirect them to another URL. And we would get them to buy an info product instead of our coaching program or mastermind. And then the second question would be, why are you interested in the Oli's coaching program? And it would say, because I value fame or I value results. And again, if they click fame, then they get kicked out. And then also you might have other qualification criteria, like you just know that you can't help startup businesses. So you may have something that just says, I'm just starting my business, but I've got 7-figure aspirations. They're a different person to hey, I'm looking to grow and scale my business. My biggest challenge is this. And, those people will come through. Or it might be, you might have a question that says, do you have the financial resources? Yes, I have the financial resources to invest in the growth of my business. No, I don't have the financial resources, or I can get access to the financial resources. And you might just cancel everybody automatically that just say, no, I haven't got the financial resources.
But don't you find a lot of people lie? A lot of people lie because they're afraid that if they say yes, okay, now you're going to be pitched some sort of like $10,000 or $50,000 offer.
Yeah. Well, it depends like how you've pre-framed it before they've got to that point. So, at the end of that video, if you say, look, for over the next few days, I've opened up some spots in my calendar to talk to you about how we could help grow your agency, for example. Before you go and do that, I just want to be really clear with you. Do not make an application if you're just starting out and you haven't really kind of got your first sort of, few clients. This isn't going to be for you. If you're the sort of person that wants to, just play around on the internet and have conversations with people and you're not ready to take action immediately, then this really isn't for you. And so you're kind of using the asset before it to pre-frame, as well as having the filters that are in there as well. And of course, you can sometimes get onto a sales call and you'll be like, well, on your application, it said that you're making $50,000 a month. And they go, yeah, I mean, that's what it was like last month. But before that, like it was this or that. I'm like, okay, well, that's the true story. I get it. And of course you can say, well, look, the price for the program is this. And they go, oh no, like, well, something is off then, isn't it? Because if you're doing this, is that incorrect? I'm just replaying back to you what you told me, then we have an incongruence. And if somebody's going to lie like that, the chances are you probably wouldn't want them in your coaching program anyway. So, yeah. Some people always slip through, of course.
No, but I love how a lot of people don't do this. A lot of people don't use the marketing before as a pre-sell or as qualification. And in my mind, marketing is all about the definition of marketing is pre-selling, right? It's get them as close to the sale as possible, so that when you actually make the sale or ask them for the transaction, whatever it is, it's just like a little nudge, right? Like you've done everything you can already to make them want to work with you or want your product. You've scaled a bunch of businesses, and something you know a lot about is scaling businesses. And I've read something that you wrote recently, which I just found fascinating, and I just want the clarification on, is you say that most businesses begin in to self-destruct at scale. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So what I mean by that is there's two types of businesses really, when you boil it down to it. And I've grown through the phases of like startup to first 100,000 a year to first 500,000 a year to first million a year to first 8 figures. And they've all got their own challenges through that process, right? But usually most businesses get stuck between 100,000 to 300,000 in revenue. Okay. And
when you say stuck, when you say stuck, you mean plateau at that level?
They can sometimes plateau, or sometimes they can regress. They can actually fall backwards. There's lots of reasons for that, but the majority of it comes down to the actual business model itself in a lot of cases. A lot of people try to improve the business by, well, I need a better team. I need to hire better people. I need to, hire my first kind of executive assistant, and people are telling me that we should create, better systems and automation and systems, processes and everything else. But a lot of the time is your business model will only get you so far. Okay. So we call that having an anti-flywheel business. And this concept of a flywheel business has now been written about by lots of different people. I'm pretty sure that everybody may say that they were the person that invented it. I don't know. But really the originator for me was how you look at Amazon and how Jeff Bezos has engineered that business to create a flywheel. Jim Collins also has a great book on having a flywheel business. And so I would say that you either have a flywheel business or an anti-flywheel business. A flywheel business means that, well, let's first of all discuss the anti-flywheel business as we were. So generally speaking, if you add more customers to a business, which is how a business grows, and keeping customers, so getting and keeping customers is the lifeblood of every business. But the more customers you add, the more of a challenge it becomes. Systems break, you need more team to support it, whether it's service delivery or whatever. And most of the time it's humans that are supporting those clients. So what happens is as you add more humans, your abilities and your skills, your challenges have to change from marketing and sales to like leadership and culture and hiring and all that stuff. And what happens is that the client experience actually gets worse the more that you grow. And you've seen this with a lot of businesses that actually can scale really quickly, but that actual customer experience can decrease, can go down. And then what happens is if your client experience goes down, the results that you get for your clients go down as well, the ultimate outcome that they get for whatever it is that you offer. So these businesses, they grow inward, which means that as they go and as they grow faster and faster, they're actually growing onto themselves, right? They're actually tripping themselves up as they grow. Despite all the things they could do, that it just doesn't seem to change. And so their business can literally self-destruct, or the business owner can literally self-destruct in some cases. And I had this with my marketing agency. We grew to $330,000 a month in recurring revenue. We did it in less than 18 months, was working with the best of the best in the world on everything that we were doing for them. And the business was a service-led business. So the more clients that we added, the experience got worse, their client results got worse. We had to add more team members. We were either in kind of feast and famine, income roller coaster. And you always think there's something else that's going to solve that problem. Oh, I just need a scrum master. We really just need to dial down into like how we're using kind of Jira or whatever project management you're using. Right? Or you're having to learn things as you go really quickly. And then you suddenly realize that this business, just like many, is not scalable. Like it isn't a scalable business. And you look then at, agencies that are on Madison Avenue, right? And then you realize that they have a very, very different investment structure to you and a very different like set of clients to you. And you start to realize that this isn't right. So what you can do to fix this problem is move from human to human and in the flesh delivery, service delivery, to in the machine, and actually machining your service delivery so that it's not delivered by a human. And so therefore you create a flywheel, because the more people you add, your business now won't capitulate. Most, say, agencies or service-based businesses, if I dropped 100 people in your agency today, it would just literally fall over and die. Well, that seems crazy, because that's the whole reason why we're in business, for growth, isn't it? Whereas if I do that in an online program business, especially the way that we have a model called the online leverage program approach, where we can charge high ticket fees for what we do because we get a great result for clients, but the experience actually gets better the more people we add, because we can get feedback from people. It's all centered around the nucleus of a community and the them helping each other. So therefore, there's less reliance upon you. And you, as the business owner, have transitioned and transcended your knowledge, your know-how, your experience, your systems, your format, whatever it might be. And you're actually delivering it online in a way that is getting actually a better result and a better experience for the people that are going through it, rather than your agency doing the work, or you doing consulting or coaching one-to-one or whatever. So you've moved from one-to-one to one-to-many. You've gone from in the human to human, in the flesh, to delivery through a machine. And your business, at the end of the day, with being a flywheel, it grows outwards and not inwards. And the phenomenon of that means you can have more freedom, you can have more profit, and you can have more prosperity. You can actually help a lot more people. And that's very satisfying as a business owner. I used to love helping our clients, and we used to charge fairly high retainers, but we could only work with a limited number of people. We could never really get the sort of impact that we make now when we take somebody to $100,000 a month,
I love that. And so talking about machines, talking about automation, we'll kind of wrap it up here. How important is automation in growing a business? And what are the key parts that should be automated for a business?
Well, I am big on automation, but in the early stages, most people don't really know what to automate. So there's all sorts of automation that we use now. We automate our hiring process of how we get people. We automate, obviously, onboarding for clients, fulfillment side of things. There's really kind of like several divisions in the business. There's the advertising systems, the marketing systems, the sales systems, the fulfillment systems, and the finance systems, and then the HR systems, the stuff that, derive from the people in the business. And so all of these can be systemized, but as you grow, sometimes you need to refine your process quite manually first to really find if automating some of that makes sense or not, right? Because in terms of delivery, if you can remove yourself from delivery, you've got to look at what's going to give you the maximum payoff for it. So a lot of people don't prioritize what they should automate at all. They just sort of go, oh, I should have a new welcome sequence, indoctrination sequence, new NPS score thing, right? But they don't really think, is that going to give me my biggest bang for my buck? Or am I better recalibrating my whole business around automation, where I'm systemizing my delivery into an online program, for example? Yes. Okay, good. Well, that has nothing to do with these other things. That's got nothing to do with ActiveCampaign or Infusionsoft or whatever your taste is, right? That is me taking my IP and packaging it and selling it that way. Then how do we now create a system to then be able to predictably bring people through to buy those programs, of course?
So Oli, I think you're going to have a lot of listeners who are super excited, especially hearing that about the flywheel, and they have a chance to have a business where they get more free time and the business could scale and make them money. For the listeners and the people watching who want to reach out to you, want to learn more, how can they find you?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is we every day we have these consultations with our business advisors. They are not sales calls. They are really an opportunity for you to find out how we may help you. But even if we can't, and we'll tell you if we can't, we'll give you some valuable resources and insight to be able to go forward with one way or another. And you can schedule a call with us and book one of those sessions at nextlevelgrowthcall.com. nextlevelgrowthcall.com, and give us a bit of information and go through, and we will happily talk to you about your business, your current situation, how to create this kind of flywheel business, online leverage program business, and take it from there.
Love it. Oli, not used to seeing you with the beard. So you threw me off. You threw me off when you came on today, but thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.